The chamber stretched so vast that its far walls disappeared into a soft blue mist. Ambassador Elena Kurosawa stood alone on the circular platform, surrounded by 47 towering seats. Each seat held a representative of the elder species, beings whose civilizations had ruled the stars for millions of years. Their eyes, in all their alien shapes and colors, stared down at her with cold judgment. Elena's hands trembled slightly, but she kept them clasped behind her back. She had given her final speech 3 hours ago. Now came the waiting, the deliberation, and soon the verdict. Around her, holographic displays showed the faces of billions of humans across hundreds of worlds, all watching, all hoping. The first speaker, a crystalline being called Morinx, rose from the central seat. Light refracted through its body, casting rainbow patterns across the chamber floor. When it spoke, its voice resonated in frequencies that made Elena's bones ache. We have reached our decision, Morinx announced. Human species stands accused of being a threat to galactic stability. Your kind adapts too quickly. You learn too fast. You spread across worlds with frightening speed. In merely 3,000 years, you have colonized 200 systems. It took the Vine 10 million years to achieve the same. Elena stepped forward. That is not a crime, that is progress. We have honored every treaty, respected every border, contributed to the Confederation's prosperity. Silence, the word crashed through the chamber like thunder. Morinx dimmed its inner light, flickering with what might have been anger. You do not understand. We have seen species like yours before. Always they bring chaos, always they disrupt the cosmic order. Your aggression, your endless ambition, your refusal to accept your place. You are too dangerous to remain. Then teach us. Elena pleaded, her voice breaking. Guide us, show us how to be better. We came to you in peace. We joined your Confederation willingly. We are not your enemies. Another voice spoke, deep and rumbling like continental plates grinding together. Counselor Thexan of the Vine, whose species had been space faring for 12 million years, leaned forward. We have taught you, we have guided you, and still you push boundaries, question traditions, challenge our wisdom. Your military grows stronger each decade. Your scientists refuse to accept limits. Your merchants undercut our established trade routes. No human, you cannot be taught to know your place. Elena felt her hope crumbling like sand through her fingers. She looked from face to alien face, searching for any sign of mercy, any hint of compassion. She found none. These beings had decided humanity's fate long before this trial began. What will you do with us? She asked. Quietly, Morinx's light intensified, filling the chamber with harsh brilliance. The Galactic Council has voted unanimously. Humanity is hereby banished from all Confederation space. You have 10 standard cycles to evacuate every human from every world within our borders. You will be escorted to the void. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Elena's blood ran cold. The void, that's murder. Nothing survives in the void. There are no stars, no resources, no planets. You're condemning 12 billion people to death. We are removing a threat, Thexan corrected. What happens to you beyond our borders is not our concern. Perhaps in the darkness between galaxies, your species will learn humility. Perhaps you will finally understand that some boundaries should never be crossed, or Perhaps you will simply fade away as you were always meant to. Elena's grief transformed into rage. She straightened. Her spine lifted, her chin and fixed the council with a stare that made several representatives shift uncomfortably in their seats. You are making a mistake. You think you're protecting the galaxy from us, but you're only showing us what monsters look like. We came to you as friends. We offered you our strength, our creativity, our loyalty, and you repay us with exile and death. Your protest is noted and dismissed. Moranik said coldly, the verdict stands. 10 cycles, not 1 day more. Elena's voice dropped to a whisper, but in the silent chamber, every being heard her words clearly. We will remember this. Every human who dies in the void, every child who never sees a star, every dream that ends in darkness, we will remember. And if by some miracle we survive, if somehow we find a way to live in that emptiness you're sending us to, then perhaps one day you will regret that you didn't destroy us completely when you had the chance. The threat landed with unexpected weight. Several counselors exchanged glances, but more than merely flickered, unimpressed. Empty words from a defeated species. Guards escort the ambassador back to her vessel. Humanity has 10 cycles to leave our space. After that, any human found within Confederation borders will be eliminated on sight. 2 armored enforcers approached Elena's platform. She didn't resist as they took her arms and guided her toward the exit. As she passed beneath the towering seats, she looked up one final time at the assembled species who had condemned her people. Her face showed no tears, no fear, only a promise. Behind her, the chamber began to empty. The elder species returned to their ships, satisfied that they had eliminated potential threat before it could grow too powerful. None of them noticed the small smile on Elena's lips as the doors sealed shut. None of them understood that humanity's greatest strength had never been aggression or ambition. It was surviving the impossible, and the void, dark and empty as it was merely the latest impossibility humanity would have to conquer. The convoy stretched for millions of kilom, 17,000 ships of every size and purpose, from massive arc vessels carrying 500,000 souls to small family transports, barely large enough for a dozen passengers. Chief Engineer Marcus Chen stood on the observation deck of the flagship Perseverance, watching the last glimmers of starlight fade behind them. That's it, Captain Rodriguez said softly beside him. We've passed the threshold. Nothing but void ahead now. Marcus pressed his hand against the transparent steel, feeling the cold seep through. Outside, the darkness was absolute. No stars, no nebulae, no distant galaxies. The void lived up to its name. It was as if they had sailed off the edge of the universe into primordial nothingness. 3 months into the journey, the first crisis hit. Without sunlight, the hydroponics bays began failing. Plants withered and died. Food supplies that were supposed to last years dwindled rapidly as the expedition relied on stored rations instead of renewable crops. People grew hungry, then desperate, then dangerous. Marcus worked 18-hour days trying to find solutions. Fusion reactors could provide power, but they couldn't replace the specific wavelengths of light that plants needed. Artificial sun lamps consumed too much energy. Every solution created new problems. Meanwhile, in the lower decks, fights broke out over food. 3 people died in a riot on the transport ship New Dawn. It was Marcus' daughter Maya who gave him the idea that changed everything. She was 7 years old, born just before the Exodus began. Unlike the adults who mourned the lost stars, Maya had adapted to the darkness with unsettling ease. She called the void cozy and often spent hours staring out viewports at the emptiness. "Daddy," she asked one night as he tucked her into bed, "why do we need stars? Can't we make our own light?" Marcus kissed her forehead. "We're trying, sweetheart, but it's not easy." "What about the wavy things?" Maya asked. "The invisible rivers you talk about with your science friends, can we drink from those?" Marcus froze. His daughter was referring to dark matter currents, theoretical constructs that his team had detected threading through the void. They were streams of exotic energy that conventional sensors couldn't see, but quantum instruments picked up faint signatures. The team had dismissed them as interesting anomalies, nothing more. But Maya's innocent question sparked something in Marcus' mind. What if dark matter wasn't just theoretical? What if it could be harnessed? He spent the next 6 months proving it was possible. Dark matter contained staggering amounts of potential energy, far exceeding anything conventional fusion could produce. The challenge was capturing it, converting it, making it usable. His team worked in secret, afraid to promise anything until they had results. The breakthrough came on a cold Tuesday morning, station time. Marcus successfully powered an entire deck using nothing but harvested dark matter energy. The readings were incredible. 1 cubic meter of void space contained enough dark matter to power Earth for 1,000 years. Within weeks, every ship in the convoy had retrofitted dark matter collectors. Power became abundant. They could run hydroponics with unlimited artificial sunlight. They could accelerate the ships faster. They could expand, build, grow. But the real discovery came 2 years into the journey. The scout ship Horizon detected something impossible: structures, massive derelict stations floating in the absolute emptiness, abandoned for untold ages. When exploration teams boarded them, they found technology beyond anything the Confederation possessed. Whoever built these stations had been giants among civilizations. Dr. Sarah O'Connor led the xenoarchaeology team investigating the ruins. What she found suggested that the void hadn't always been void. Once, millions of years ago, this region had been dense with stars, and ancient species had lived here, thrived here, built an empire here. Then something had happened. The stars had been consumed, harvested, used in some incomprehensible process. The civilization had either ascended to another plane of existence or destroyed itself, but they left behind their technology. They left it on purpose. Sarah told Marcus as they explored a vast chamber filled with dormant machines. This was a testing ground, a place where they pushed the boundaries of physics. They were learning to manipulate the fundamental forces of reality, and were their inheritors. Marcus breathed, running his hand over symbols he couldn't read but somehow understood. They left all this knowledge here, waiting for someone capable enough to find it. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The Confederation had banished humanity to this wasteland, expecting them to die. Instead, they had found a treasure trove that made Confederation technology look primitive. With access to dark matter energy and ancient knowledge, humanity began building not just ships but floating cities, vast orbital citadels that needed no planet, no star, only the boundless energy flowing through the void. 10 years after entering the darkness, the first permanent settlement was completed. They called it Haven, a massive ring-shaped station housing 3 million people. It gleamed with lights, powered by the void itself, a beacon of defiance in the endless night. Maya, now 17, stood beside her father at Haven's inauguration ceremony. She had never seen a natural star, had never felt sunlight on her face. The void was her home, the darkness her comfort. She represented a new generation, children born to the abyss, who knew nothing else. Do you miss it? She asked Marcus. The old worlds, the stars. Marcus looked at his daughter, at the incredible station they had built, at the thousands of ships moving through the darkness with perfect confidence. He thought about the Confederation, probably assuming humanity had died off. By now he smiled. No, he said, we're home. Admiral Kenji Tanaka walked through the command center of Citadel Prime, the largest human settlement. The void. 200 years had passed since the exile. Everyone who remembered the old worlds, who had felt natural sunlight, who had gazed at stars without using instruments, they were all dead now. The void had inherited humanity's future, and they had built something magnificent. Through the massive viewports, Kenji could see dozens of Citadel stations dotting the darkness. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering, some shaped like flowers, others like geometric crystals, still others like spirals that defied conventional physics. They glowed with internal light, powered by the dark matter that flowed endlessly through the emptiness. 50 billion humans now called the void home, more than 4 times the number that had entered it. Admiral, the patrol fleet is returning, Lieutenant Chen reported. They encountered another derelict. This one's different, Dr. O'Connor wants to see you immediately. Kenji found Sarah in the xenoarchaeology lab, though calling her just Dr. O'Connor didn't do her justice anymore. She was 134 years old, kept alive by medical technology derived from the ancient ruins. She looked 60 and had the energy of someone half that age. Before her floated a holographic display showing symbols and equations that hurt to look at directly. We found it, Sarah said without preamble. The reason the ancients built all this, the reason they turned this entire region into a laboratory. What was it? Kenji asked. Sarah's eyes gleamed with excitement and terror. They were trying to create a bridge, passage between dimensions, between different layers of reality. They succeeded. That's why the stars disappeared. They didn't destroy them. They moved them, folded them into dimensional pockets where physics works differently. Kenji felt his stomach drop. Can we access this technology? We already have, Sarah admitted. Engineering teams have been working on it for 5 years. They call it shadow drive. Ships equipped with it can phase between dimensional layers. Travel that would take years happens instantly. We've been testing it on drones, but today we're ready for crude trials. The first shadow drive test changed everything. The experimental ship Phantom entered shadow space and reappeared on the other side of the void instantaneously, covering a distance that would have taken 3 months at maximum conventional speed. The pilot reported seeing impossible things in shadow space, geometries that shouldn't exist, colors that had no Names, the sensation of moving through. Dimensions the human mind couldn't fully comprehend. Within a decade, every human ship had shadow drive capability. The void, which had been humanity's prison, became their private highway they could move through it with perfect ease, while any other species would be hopelessly lost. Confederation ships needed stars to navigate, solar wind to recharge, trade routes between systems. Human ships needed nothing but the darkness itself. The military applications were obvious. Admiral Tanaka oversaw the construction of the Void Defense Fleet, warships designed from the ground up to exploit shadow space technology. They could appear without warning, strike from impossible angles, and vanish before return fire arrived. Their weapons were equally impressive, gravity cannons that could crush starships like tin cans, dark matter torpedoes that phased through shields, and the terrifying dimensional cutters that could slice a vessel into separate realities. But humanity didn't build these weapons for conquest, they built them for protection. The memory of the exile burned in every heart. They would never again be defenseless, never again be at the mercy of species who saw them as threats. Kenji stood in the war room with his senior staff, reviewing tactical simulations. Captain Zara Ibrahim, 28 years old and void, manipulated the holographic display with casual expertise. She had never seen a star, except in recordings, never set foot on a planet. The darkness was her element. The advantage is overwhelming, Zara reported. Any Confederation fleet entering the void would be blind, immobile, and vulnerable. We control this space absolutely. Nothing gets in or out without our permission. Good, Kenji said. Keep it that way. Our ancestors were banished here to die. Instead, we turned the abyss into a fortress. The Confederation thought they were condemning us. They gave us the greatest gift possible, freedom from their rules, their limitations, their fear. Commander Liu, chief scientist of the weapons division, cleared his throat. Sir, there's something else. The dimensional research has revealed something troubling. The ancients didn't just disappear, they left warnings, markers in deep shadow space, indicating danger beyond the galactic rim. Something that frightened beings who could move stars. Kenji felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of danger? Unknown, Liu admitted, but if the ancients were afraid of it, we should be too. I recommend we establish monitoring stations at the edge of the void, facing outward. If something comes from beyond, we need early warning. The monitoring stations were built and staffed for 50 years. They detected nothing unusual. Humanity continued to grow, to build, to push the boundaries of what was possible. They unlocked secrets from the ancient ruins that revolutionized medicine, energy production, material science. The citadels grew larger and more beautiful. Art and culture flourished in ways the Confederation, with its rigid hierarchies and ancient traditions, could never match. But Kenji never forgot the warnings. He was 107 years old now, still kept sharp by void technology, still commanding the defense fleet. He walked through Citadel Prime's observation gardens, where trees grew under artificial suns and children played without fear. Maya, Marcus Chen's daughter, worked here now as an engineer. She was 207 years old and looked 40. Her great-grandchildren ran through the gardens laughing. Admiral, Maya called out, waving. Come see what we've built. She led him to a new section where a massive viewport had been installed. Through it the void stretched endlessly, but something was different. Maya handed him enhanced optics that filtered multiple dimensional layers simultaneously. Through them, Kenji saw the void as it really was, not empty but full currents of dark matter flowing like rivers of light, dimensional echoes creating patterns of impossible beauty, the ghost images of stars that existed in folded space. The void wasn't a wasteland. It was an ocean of energy and possibility. This is what we've become, Maya said softly, children of the abyss. The darkness is our birthright, and nothing in this galaxy can take it from us. Counselor the Zarin had lived for 16 million years. In all that time he had seen civilizations rise and fall like waves on an endless ocean. He had voted to banish humanity 2 centuries ago, convinced it was the right choice. Now, as he watched his home world burn, he wondered if the Confederation's greatest strength, caution, and tradition had become its fatal weakness. The Devourers had come from beyond the galactic rim 6 months ago. They were not a species but a swarm, millions of biomechanical ships that consumed everything in their path. Stars, planets, space stations, even the void of space itself seemed to fuel their endless hunger. The Confederation's defense fleets, built on technology millions of years old and refined to perfection, shattered against them like glass against steel. The Vine had fallen first, 12 systems consumed in 3 weeks, then the crystalline Moranx territories, their beautiful geometric cities cracked open and devoured. Species that had ruled the galaxy for epochs died screaming as the Devourers swept through their space. No weapon worked, no strategy succeeded. The swarm adapted to everything the Confederation threw at them, learning and evolving with terrifying speed. The Zarin stood in the emergency council chamber, a hastily assembled bunker on the last fortified world. Only 19 counselors remained. The others were dead or missing. Their home worlds turned to debris. We have one option left, First Speaker Malkuth said, the successor to Moranx, who had been consumed with his entire species. We must ask the humans for help. The chamber erupted in protests. Pride, ancient and deep, made the suggestion almost physically painful. The humans were supposed to be dead, destroyed by the void they had been banished to. The few scout probes sent to confirm their extinction had never returned. The Confederation had assumed the void had swallowed them completely. We banished them. Counselor Vexithura of the Keelthans protested. We condemned them to death. Why would they help us? Because if they survive, they are our only hope. Malkuth replied grimly. Every fleet we send against the Devourers is destroyed. Every world we fortify falls within days. The swarm is endless, but if the humans somehow live, if they found a way to exist in the void, then they possess technology we do not understand, and understanding the impossible is what we need right now. The vote was not unanimous this time. 7 counselors voted against asking for human aid, but 12 voted in favor. And the message was sent, a single probe, broadcasting on all frequencies, carrying a simple plea: humanity, if you survive, we need your help. The galaxy is dying. For 3 days there was no response. Thex assumed the humans were extinct after all, and the Confederation's last desperate hope died with them. Then they Monitors picked up something impossible. Ships emerging from the void, not a few. Not dozens. Thousands of vessels. Materializing from empty space where nothing should exist. The human fleet appeared at the battle of Kilara Prime, where the Confederation's last major fleet was making its final stand. Supreme Commander Amara Akefer led the human armada from the flagship Abyss Walker, vessel that seemed to drink light rather than reflect it. She was 53 years old, voidorn, and had never seen the Confederation space until this moment. Thexan watched from the surface of Kethra Prime as the battle unfolded. Above, the Devourer swarm numbered in the millions, a writhing mass of biomechanical horror that had crushed everything in its path. The human ships moved like ghosts, there and not there, flickering between dimensions. They weren't fighting in normal space. They were fighting across multiple layers of reality simultaneously. A human destroyer phased into existence directly inside a Devourer capital ship, fired its weapons from within, and phased out before the explosion. Human fighters moved at impossible angles, attacking from directions that didn't exist in three-dimensional space. Gravity cannons didn't just destroy Devourer ships, they crushed them into singularities that vanished into dimensional pockets. But what terrified the Zarin most was the dimensional cutter. A human dreadnought fired a beam that split reality itself. Devourer ships caught in the beam didn't explode or break apart, they ceased to exist, erased from multiple dimensions at once. Millions of swarm vessels vanished. Minutes, the battle lasted 4 hours. The Devourer swarm that had taken 6 months to destroy half the Confederation was obliterated in an afternoon. When the last enemy ship fell, Theron finally understood what humanity had become. They weren't the aggressive young species he remembered. They were something the galaxy had never seen. Masters of the darkness, wielders of technology that made the Confederation's million-year advancement look primitive. Amara's face appeared on every screen. Across Kethra Prime, she looked tired, but satisfied. This is Supreme Commander Akefer of the Void Fleet. The Devourer Vanguard has been eliminated. We are pursuing the remaining swarm beyond the galactic rim. They will not threaten you again. Theron led the delegation that met with Amara on the Abyss Walker. The human ship's interior was unlike anything he expected. Instead of the sterile corridors of Confederation vessels, it felt organic, alive. The walls seemed to shift and breathe. Energy flowed through conduits that existed in more than 3 dimensions. "Thank you," the Zarin said, the words catching in his throat. "You saved us." Amara regarded him with eyes that held no warmth. "We didn't come for you. We came for the innocent civilians who never voted to condemn us. The children, the civilians, the billions who had no say in what your council did too. Centuries ago, I voted for your exile." Thexan admitted, "I believed you were too dangerous to remain in the Confederation. I was wrong." "Yes, you were," Amara agreed. "You saw us as a threat because we changed too fast, adapted too quickly. Then you threw us into the worst environment imaginable and expected us to die. Instead, you gave us the greatest gift possible. Necessity. We adapted because we had no choice. We innovated because tradition couldn't save us. We became what we needed to be, and now we're more advanced than you can imagine." Malkuth spoke carefully. "The Council wishes to Offer humanity full reinstatement, all your old territories returned, permanent seat on the council, access to all Confederation resources. Amara laughed, a sound without humor. You still don't understand, we don't want your territories, we don't need your resources, we don't care about your council. The void is our home now, it's made us strong in ways you cannot comprehend. Why would we trade that for the privilege of rejoining the civilization that tried to kill us? Then, what do you want? Thurin asked. Amara's expression hardened. We want you to leave us alone. The void is ours. No Confederation ship enters it without permission. We'll guard your rim, protect you from external threats, because that's what civilized beings do. But we're done bowing to councils and votes and ancient species who think A equals wisdom. You taught us that lesson. Chancellor David Mbeki stood before the rebuilt Galactic Council chamber. But this time no human stood in judgment. The roles had reversed. Representatives from 31 surviving L species filled the seats that once held 47. The others had been consumed by the devourers before humanity intervened. The survivors looked at David with a mixture of gratitude, fear, and shame. We have driven the devourers beyond the galactic rim, David announced, his voice carrying through the chamber with quiet authority. Our fleets pursued them for 6 months through shadow space and across dimensional barriers they could not cross. The threat is contained. They will not return to this galaxy. First speaker Malkuth leaned forward. How is such a thing possible? Our sensors detected the swarm continuing outward beyond our ability to track. How can you be certain they won't return? David smiled thinly. Because we destroyed their queen mind, the central intelligence coordinating the entire swarm. Without it, the devourers are mindless drones that will drift in the intergalactic void until their power sources fail. It took us 3 months to find it, hidden in a pocket dimension. Your sensors would never have detected it. Ours did. The implications hung in the air. Humanity could track and fight across dimensions the Confederation couldn't even perceive. The technological gap between them had become a canyon. Counselor the Zarin, older and humbler than he had been, spoke carefully. The council has voted to offer humanity full membership, not as a probationary species, but as an elder species with full voting rights and authority. We would be honored to have you join us. David had expected this. The council always solved problems by incorporating new members, binding them with treaties and tradition, but humanity had learned different lessons. In the void, we decline, David said simply. Chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Malkuth raised a crystalline appendage. For silence. Surely you understand what we're offering: full authority, representation, access to Confederation resources. Why would you refuse? Because we don't need it, David replied. In the void, we built a civilization. Without your resources, without your guidance, without your ancient wisdom. 50 billion humans live in the darkness, now thriving in ways you consider impossible. We have technology that makes your million-year advancement look primitive. Why would we trade our independence for a seat at a table that once voted unanimously to kill us? The flinched at the words. That was a mistake. We know that now. We were afraid of what you might become. We failed to see that our fear created the very thing we dreaded. David's Expression softened slightly. I appreciate the acknowledgement, but understanding your mistake doesn't change our decision. However, we're not abandoning the galaxy. We propose something different. He gestured and a holographic map appeared, showing the galaxy with the void marked as a vast dark region along one edge. The void remains human territory. Sovereign and independent, no Confederation ship enters without explicit permission, but humanity will establish embassies in your space. We'll maintain trade relations, cultural exchanges, scientific cooperation, and, most importantly, we'll serve as guardians of the galactic rim. Guardians, Malkuth asked. The Devourers came from beyond this galaxy, David explained. They won't be the last threat. From that direction, the universe is vast and it contains dangers your species have never encountered because you stayed within your comfortable borders, but we've been to the edge. We've seen what lies in the darkness between galaxies. We're not afraid of it anymore. We'll watch the rim defend against external threats and keep the Confederation safe. Counselor Vexathara, representing the few surviving Keelthan, spoke up. And what do you want in return? Recognition of our sovereignty, David said. No interference in void affairs, and honestly your respect, not the fearful respect you showed us before, but genuine acknowledgement that different species can choose different paths. The vote took 3 hours. In the end, it was unanimous. The Confederation recognized the void as sovereign human territory and accepted humanity's role as rim guardians. Treaties were signed, embassies established, trade routes opened, but humanity never rejoined the Confederation as members. They remained apart, mysterious, powerful. 20 years after the battle, young Zara Ibrahim, daughter of the captain who had fought the Devourers, piloted her scout ship through the outer regions of the void. At 23, she represented the newest generation, humans who knew the darkness as intimately as their ancestors knew sunlight. She had studied the history, seen the recordings of Earth and the old colonies, but they felt like ancient myths. The void was real. The void was home. Her sensors detected an anomaly, and she guided her ship to investigate. Floating in the darkness was a probe, ancient and damaged. Its hull bore the seal of the Confederation, marked with the date 200 years past. This was one of the scouts sent to confirm humanity's extinction. Zara activated her comm scout ship Wanderer to Citadel Prime. I found one of the old Confederation probes. Should I retrieve it, Admiral? Tanaka's voice came back, ancient and amused. Might as well add it to the museum. Let people see what the Confederation sent to find our corpses. Zara smiled as she engaged the tractor beam. The museum on Citadel Prime had become a popular destination, showing humanity's journey from exile to triumph. The centerpiece was a recording of Ambassador Elena Kurosawa's final speech to the Council, her warning that they would regret not destroying humanity completely when they had the chance. That recording always drew crowds. Voidborn children watched it with fascination, unable to comprehend a time when humanity was weak, when they needed permission to exist, when others decided their fate. Those days seemed impossibly distant now. As Zara secured the ancient probe, she looked out at the void, stretching endlessly around her. Somewhere far away, the Confederation went about its business, bound by tradition and ancient hierarchies, but Here in the darkness, humanity had found freedom. They had turned their death sentence into a rebirth. The abyss that was meant to consume them had instead been conquered, transformed into the foundation of a civilization unlike any other. Zara thought about her great-grandmother's generation, the ones who had entered the void expecting to die. They had been afraid, desperate, grieving for their lost worlds, but they had adapted. They had survived. They had built something beautiful from nothing but darkness and determination. She engaged her shadow drive and flickered between dimensions, crossing half the void in an instant. The darkness embraced her, welcomed her, carried her home, and as Citadel Prime appeared in the distance, its lights gleaming like a jewel in the endless night, Zara understood the greatest irony of all. The Confederation had banished humanity to destroy them. Instead, they had freed them. The void, meant to be a prison, had become humanity's greatest sanctuary, and the species that was too dangerous to live among the stars had become the galaxy's greatest protectors, watching from the darkness, forever vigilant, forever free. The age of humanity had begun, not in triumph or conquest, but in exile and darkness, and that made all the difference.